Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing so well and welcome to this little oil painting and chill session of this painting entitled The Rocking Horse. I hope you can see. And thank you all so much for your wonderful comments on my last video. And this week's comment shout out goes to Emmy Art. She is absolutely amazing. I will leave a link to her channel below. If you would like to be featured in my channel shout out every week, please leave a comment below and subscribe. Quickly run through the materials I used to create this, it might be useful. So I bought this panel by the brand PBO. I've heard of this brand so many times before. I know that they make panels, but I've never actually bought one. But this was something that I just wanted to experiment on basically, because I wanted just a linen panel that I could prime. Now I primed this with my own oil primer. This is the first time that I have attempted this. I don't know whether it might be the last, possibly, and I'll go into that in a second. And I used the Gamblin ground to prime this. Normally I do occasionally prime my other panels and canvases with gesso, and I find that really straightforward. Basically you just get a big brush and you dunk it in the gesso and then you cover your canvas, and then if you want to do it with wood, you just sand in between the layers and you can sort of, prime 2 or 3 times. The difference between regular gesso and an oil primer is basically, I find the texture, your oil primer is extremely thick, and the smell, I was not expecting this to smell bad, because when I saw the reviews of this product, or when I see the reviews of oil primers, most of the reviews say, oh, it had no scent at all, it was amazing. And so I was like, oh great, but actually I know that this oil primer stinks, and even after it dried after a week and I was painting on this, I could still smell it, and I can still smell it right now. And even when I was taking the thumbnail for this, I felt it, I feel its presence with me all the time. No, I'm really kidding. So I actually didn't prime. I sort of primed this in an open area which had tons of ventilation and everything, so it was fine. But I'm not entirely sure that I enjoyed the experience. Like, I found it really difficult to spread. I mixed it with Gamsol, but even then, I don't know, I just found it quite hard. And then I used a brush. I dipped the brush in the oil primer, and it was so sticky that it went into the fibres of the brush, and so I can't clean that brush. I've tried so many times. That brush is lost forever. So those are my thoughts on the oil primer. I may do a full in-depth review on it, and I may try and use it again, but it was a lot more difficult than I was anticipating. And yeah, I do actually really like the way it came out though, I must say. And Gamblin do incredibly high quality product, so I was not surprised that the finish of it was absolutely beautiful, and it really does look like just an oil primed linen that you would buy, but it just wasn't my favourite DIY experience. The oil priming, and the panel size is 20 by 20, and again it's a little bit of an odd size to me. I don't normally paint in a square, and it was going to be interesting to see if I can find a frame. I'm hopeful though, because it is in panel form. And in terms of the paints, I used some Gamblin, one of my favourites, and I also was trying out this paint blocks, and this is really interesting. This is so with Gamblin and a lot of oil paints, their binder is linseed oil. I believe the binder for their paints is poppy oil as opposed to linseed oil, and it makes the paints very creamy and smooth and really nice to use actually. I was really pleasantly surprised. I just wanted to check them out because I've heard so many amazing things about this brand. I believe they're Belgian, I think. I hope I didn't get that wrong. And they've got a really great reputation. I think some really famous artists have used their paints before. And the only drawback though is that they are incredibly expensive. I was so surprised because I was just surprised. Some Michael Harding paints as well in the mix. I always use these paints. I think they are incredible. One of my favourites as well, but they're in another box. But just imagine what they look like. I wanted to show you the medium I was using, which is basically just linseed oil, but I unfortunately bought a bottle of oil to clean my brushes in. And I don't know how this happened. Maybe I tripped over it or something. I probably did. But it ended up lying on its side next to my other mediums and it leaked. I don't even know how this happened because normally they have this, and it does have a safety lock on the lid. But anyway, it leaked all over my other mediums. So they were all drenched in oil. So I had to spend ages cleaning them. And some of my mediums, because the actual medium itself dries in a kind of like sticky way, some of my medium bottles are really sticky now, and when I try to clean them they just get even more sticky and like stuff kind of gross, so I don't want to present them on camera and everyone will be like ah. But anyway, so I do hope you enjoyed this little chat, and I will see you in the speed paint. The story behind this painting of a girl on a flying rocking horse is on my Instagram, and so if you're interested in the story behind it, then please check it out. The link will be in the description. And this week I thought I would talk about what I've been doing, which hasn't been particularly exciting. The reason being that we're actually in sort of another lockdown at the moment, and I think that I'm in tier 2, but I'm not entirely sure. I possibly could be in tier 3. I'm not established it yet. I've tried so many times to work it out. I think that I'm basically on the border of tier 2 and tier 3, and so the surrounding area, like sort of around me, if you go towards the countryside, is in tier 2. But if you head towards London, and I'm quite close to London, then you're definitely in tier 3. So I haven't been going out very much because of that. So instead, I have been trying to organise my art space. It really isn't very exciting at all, but it's such a necessary thing to do that I have been putting off, because when you start oil painting or any sort of art medium, you don't really have many supplies to start with. I mean, when I started drawing, I literally had just one tin of colouring pencils, and when I started oil painting, I had one box of Winsor & Newton paints. But over the years, because I've been painting for quite some time, you start to pick up various different materials, and I wouldn't say you necessarily need that much, but because I'm so curious about what are the best materials and how to improve my art constantly, I'm always picking up one thing or another, and I've experimented a lot with different mediums. Then I have lots of different types of gesso. I have lots of canvases that some of them have been discarded because even though they seemed really great at the time, I haven't liked the finish. And I really like to paint on a super smooth surface with a tiny bit of tooth. And so that type of surface is quite difficult to find. So a lot of the time when you are buying canvases, even if you go into a store and buy them, you don't really know what the texture is going to be like. Even if they say things like fine grain, sometimes it can be not as fine as you want. And if they say medium grain, possibly they can be quite smooth. It really is luck. And so there are some big canvases that I have that are discarded, and I keep thinking I can't throw them away because they are still, able to use. I'm still able to use them. So I keep them in a corner, and they sort of stare at me with suspicion, and I stare at them with suspicion, and they never get used. I sort of personified my canvases there, but you know what I mean. Like, it's hard to throw things away. And there's another thing, that when you buy frames, particularly when you buy frames online, and if you don't buy them from a specialist art shop, now on occasion I buy them from different types of online stores, and I get tempted by the way they look and I buy them, and very often they work out to be great, but I always email them beforehand and say, can you please not send the glass, because with oil paintings you're not supposed to frame them behind glass. And the reason being that oil paintings take years and years to dry. I mean, even though they're dry to the touch, they aren't actually dry. It's such an odd thing. And so you do actually need to take off the glass and just have the frame around the painting. So I always email the company beforehand and say, please don't send the glass, because otherwise I will have to throw the glass. I don't need the glass, please don't send it. And the amount of times they say, oh yeah, of course, we won't send the glass, and then they send the glass, and then I have to get rid of the glass. So I have glass as well, just hanging around, not doing anything. So I'm trying to decide what to do with that. And And I've also got some pads and paper that I don't know whether to use or not because it's not the perfect size. So I will let you know and keep you updated on my art supply organisation, the most boring topic ever. I do hope you like this painting. I think that the colour came out really beautifully on this oil primer, but of course that was a real fiasco, so I'm not sure whether I'm going to do that again. But I do hope you like this painting and that you are having a wonderful week, and I will see you next week. Take care, guys.